Sawadee Cup. We are back with Tim Fetters and the 4-Hour Work Week. We are on to D for definition. Remember the whole deal thing that he starts the book with. So we're going to break it down now. And starting with D, D is for definition, or step 1, he has it. Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Albert Einstein. Albert's a smart guy. Probably learn a little bit listening to him. So yeah, the reality as we have it is what we make it. Just got off the phone with a new agent who's starting, and I'm working with some guys who used to have their license with me, who wholesalers who are doing really well, and he's going to hook up with them and work some of their leads. And yeah, man, it's all happening for this young guy, and I'm really excited to watch him grow in a very short time. So yeah, realities. You know, his reality today is completely different from his reality a month and 3 months and 6 months and a year from now. So that's cool. That's really cool to watch. Cautions and comparisons. How to burn $1 million a night. Cool thing about being an old fart and forgetting shit is I don't remember this part from when I read the book. Or now that it's the expanded whatever, maybe this is new. I don't know. I don't remember burning $1 million in a night. So awesome. These individuals have riches, just as we say that we have a fever, when really the fever has us. There you go. Yeah, when you have a fever, you don't want it. It's got you. The fever is grabbing you by the fucking throat and making you hot and uncomfortable. Seneca. Ah, there you go. Tim, what I'm learning from watching YouTube videos on him, is really into Stoicism. And the most original Stoic, published Stoic, is Seneca. So he actually has done books on him, and he studies Stoicism, which I haven't studied it yet. I haven't done the deep dive into it yet, but from what I understand, just general knowledge, Stoicism is not giving a fuck what anybody thinks about you. Way ahead of you, Tim. This is the one thing that I think I had Tim beat on, because he's 40 years old now, 41 years old, and he's just starting to really kind of get into this in the last few years. I was born, when I was born, I slapped the doctor, right, instead of him slapping me. Yeah. I was born with the middle finger out. Right? Yeah. Got a chip on my shoulder. It is what it is. I also have in mind that seemingly wealthy, but most terribly impoverished class of all, who have accumulated dross. Oh, not dross. Who wants to accumulate dross? Fucking okay. But know not how to use it. People used to speak in very interesting ways. I know not how to use it. Okay? Or get rid of it. And thusly, he doth say, and thus have forged their own golden or silver fetters. Henry David Thoreau. There you go. In 1817 to 1862, which explains why he was speaking that way. I have in mind that seemingly wealthy, but most terribly impoverished class of all. So they seem wealthy, but they're really poor, who have accumulated crap, material possessions, stuff you don't need, but know not how to use it. They got golf clubs, expensive golf clubs, and they sit in the attic or garage, not used, right? I get that. Or get rid of it. They can't get rid of it because they feel like their success is based on their possessions, and thus have forged their own golden or silver fetters. So I don't know what the word fetters means. That's too old for even me, as old as I am. But I'm guessing it's kind of like chains. It's binding them, it's holding them down. So there's people who have BMWs and Mercedes and Ferraris and Bugatti Veyrons and, several big houses and all this stuff. But that doesn't make them happy. That doesn't make them happy. In fact, it's holding them down because they can't, they lose mobility. They're building cages with possessions. So, wow, okay. I'm with him. Well, we're already at 4 minutes, oh my God. Read, you fat bastard, read. 1 a.m. Central Standard Time, 30,000 feet over Las Vegas. Okay, so he's in a plane. His friends drunk to the point of speaking in tongues, okay, were asleep. So they're not speaking in tongues because they're asleep. It was just the two of us now in first class. He extended his hand to introduce himself, and an enormous Looney Tunes cartoon, enormous diamond ring appeared from the ether as his fingers crossed under my reading light. Mark was a legitimate magnet. He had, at different times, run practically all the gas stations, convenience stores, and gambling in South Carolina. He confessed with a half smile that in an average trip to Sin City, he and his fellow weekend warriors might lose an average of $500,000 to $1 million each. Nice. Stupid, but whatever, okay. He sat up in his seat as the conversation drifted to my travels, but I was more interested in his astounding record of printing money. So, of all your businesses, which did you like the most? The answer took less than a second of thought. None of them. He explained that he had spent more than 30 years with people he didn't like to buy things he didn't need. All right, so here he is. He's a millionaire. This is what everybody thinks they want to be. A multi-millionaire, obviously. If he's going to Vegas and dropping a $500,000 or $1 million and not worrying about it, guy's got shit tons of money. And yes, that's a technical term, shit tons of money. Look it up. It's in Wikipedia. And that's what you all think you want, right? Including me. You know, when I was working in the cubicle jungle, man, if I only had millions. Oh, if I win the lottery, right? And look, buying shit he doesn't need, not getting any joy out of life, dealing with people he didn't like. Life had become a succession of trophy wives. He was on lucky number 3. Expensive cars and other empty bragging rights. Mark was one of the living dead. Wow. Fuck, man. Hey, boy knows how to put it in perspective, right? The living dead. He's got all this money. You think that's it. But I did a dating video on here about, you know, banging 22-year-olds and shit and going, man, this isn't for me. And you all looking at me like I'm fucking nuts. And it's not. I'm at a different place physically now. So my head was still there. Like people's heads are still, I want to be a millionaire. But then you actually get it and you're like, okay, so this really wasn't what I wanted. You know, I just want one chick to take care of and to take care of me. I want to be a player in my head, but then I'm actually a player. I'm like, oh, my fucking back, and oh, you're taking a half an hour to catch my breath, and the reality of it isn't what you think it is when you're dreaming it. So that's really interesting that he's pulling this out. It's a book about like how to live rich, and he's saying when you're actually rich, it's not what you think, which kind of folds in with the book. Like, how about living the lifestyle that you think you're going to live when you're rich without ever being rich? Because when he spoke to rich people, more than just one, he's using this guy Mark as an example, but he's talked to lots of rich people, and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Very cool. I'm happy I'm reading this book. Explaining he spent blah, 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 bragging rights, trophy wives. Mark was one of the living dead. This is exactly where we don't want to end up. Strong. 8 minutes. All right, I can read a little bit more. Apples and oranges, a comparison. So what makes the difference? What separates the new rich, characterized by options, from the deferrers, those who save it all for the end only to find that life has passed them by? That's another thing too. People who are just looking at the bank account and looking at the numbers. Does the money make you happy? Does seeing your account go up make you happy? No. It doesn't work that way, or shouldn't work that way. It begins at the beginning. The new rich can be separated from the crowd based on their goals, which reflect very distinct priorities and life philosophies. Note how subtle differences in wording completely change the necessary actions for fulfilling what at a glance appear to be similar goals. These are not limited to business owners. Even the first, as I will show later, applies to employees. So no matter where you're at right now in your journey, this stuff applies. The D thinking, right, which is the defer, the common thing, to work for yourself. The new way of thinking, to have others work for you. Delegate, VAs, right, yes. The old way, to work when you want to. The new way, to prevent work for work's sake. eliminate the waste, right? What is the necessary work is a great question, right? That you drill down and find out what has to be done and what really doesn't have to be done. And to do the minimum necessary for maximum effect. Minimum effective load, minimum effective dose in the 4-hour body he talks about. So yeah, that's a huge concept that you'll see time and time again with Tim, is minimum effective load or minimum effective dose. Was the minimum to do necessary for the maximum effect. So if you don't get 100% of the results, you get 80 or 90% of the results, but you only have to do 20% of the work, that's a win. That's a win. And that's a key concept to this book. And the other thing I want you to take away, and we'll talk a lot more about that as this book goes forward. The other thing I want you to take away from today is the work for work's sake. Don't just gloss over that. I read it pretty quickly, but what that means is some people have read this book before or heard of this book or heard of the concept, and they scoffed at the 4-hour concept, saying that's not possible. You need to work 60 or 80 hours a week. The reason you think you need to work 60 or 80 hours a week is because you're accepting that everything you've been calling work really needs to be done. So this is a critical part where you're changing the mindset, where you're understanding that not everything, that you have to change for this book to be successful. You've got to change your definition of work. What's really important to move this business forward? Do I really need to put 80 hours a week into these tasks? Are every one of these tasks on my to-do list top priority and mission critical? That minimum effective dose, right? What's mission critical? You got to get good at prioritizing your to-do list, and you'll find that a lot of the bottom can really drop off, and you never needed to do it in the first place. So there's no magic in a 4-hour work week. It's not about just working 4 hours. It's eliminating the 36 plus hours of crap you really didn't need to get done. Not for the business. The business didn't need to survive. And I see that a lot in real estate where somebody's new. Thinking of this guy William, who's a wholesaler, who's going to hang his license when he gets it in the next few days or a week. And he hired a VA and he hired an acquisitions manager. I'm like, dude, you've got nothing to delegate. You're just starting out, right? So you don't need a VA yet because the VA isn't going to take a bunch of tasks that are taking up your time. You've got time right now. You do those tasks or eliminate them and only do the important stuff. And then as your thing grows and scales and you're the bottleneck, now you hire the VA. Then you hire the acquisitions manager, right? So a lot of people starting the real estate business work on getting business cards, buying pens, buying staplers, buying printers and ink cartridges and office furniture. Why? Because that's easy. What's hard is doing the work, doing the core product, right? Everything else is just a distraction. Oh, I got to build a website. Yes, you do. You need an internet presence, but that's not a priority. Getting customers is a priority. Manufacturing your product, getting marketing, you're getting your service out there so you get customers. That's a priority. The rest will come. The rest will come with time. So focus on critically examining the work and see how it shrinks under the magnifying glass when you're really getting it down to that minimum effective load, right? What gives you the most bang for your buck? And also, I said, I'm bad, dude. You need to work for yourself, work when you want to, prevent work for work's sake. The minimum effective. I kind of combine the two. So one, critically look at the work. Number two, figure out what's the minimum amount of hours you can spend, work you can do to get the maximum effect, right? It's about being more efficient. If I can sum it up in one word, it's efficiency, right? You want to become more efficient. Right now, what you're doing is working too many hours, too hard on some stuff that really isn't that important and isn't to use a term from the military, mission critical, right? What's really mission critical? Think of it that way, and you'll see the workload in a whole new light. Do you really need to do that thing that you're about to do? Is that really mission critical? Or is your time spent, better out getting new customers, right? Locate prospects, step one. Cool. I ran a little bit long, 15 minutes, but I'll end it here. More good stuff. He's got a lot more stuff coming. I could have just kept reading from that thing, but I really want to keep these shorter. So, good stuff again. Glad I'm reading this book. I will talk with you all later.